Gentlemen, honored guests and maintainers, I'm Technical Sergeant Kariko Moore, your narrator for today's ceremony. I would like to personally welcome and thank all those in attendance today. We're here today to honor Master Sergeant Christopher McGhee on the occasion of his retirement from the United States Air Force after 20 years of faithful, dedicated service. A retirement service ceremony represents the culmination of a distinguished career in the service to the United States. It also pays tribute to the sacrifices and professional excellence of those who have chosen to enter a higher calling to the service of their country. Your presence here today is not only evidence of your appreciation for Sergeant McGhee's past dedication to duty, but also reflects your sincere wishes for an enjoyable and rewarding future. The presiding officer for today's ceremony is Captain Holly Gramco, Maintenance Operations Officer for the 86th Aircraft Maintenance Squadron, Ramstein Air Force Base, Germany. Attending today's ceremony as special guests of Sergeant McGhee are his lovely wife, Miranda, his daughters, Alexandra, Alyssa, and his very first supervisor, Staff Sergeant Retired, Brian Cottle. Also attending are Sergeant McGhee's honored guests to include Chief Master Sergeant Tom Rustin, Superintendent for the 309th Aircraft Maintenance Unit, and Master Sergeant Retired Ernest Copeland, who is the FAA Safety Team Program Manager, and his lovely wife, Lois. We would also like to extend a warm welcome to all of the commanders, chiefs, first sergeants, friends and family, with a special thanks to all the maintainers in attendance today. Ladies and gentlemen, please rise for the entrance of the official party and remain standing for the national anthem. Please be seated. It is my great pleasure to introduce to you our presiding officer for today's ceremony, Captain Holly Gramco.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, coworkers, friends, and family of Master Sergeant Chris McGhee. Thank you so much for joining me today in celebrating his 20 years of service to the United States Air Force. To Chris's family, Miranda, Alex, and Alyssa, I know this day means a lot to you too, and we celebrate all of your years of supporting Chris as well. Special thanks to Ernie and Lois for being there for Miranda along the way as well. I could not have been more honored when Sergeant McGhee asked me to retire him 4.5 years ago. We were at Luke and had just survived the turnaround of the 308th AMU. More about that later. Let's start way back from the beginning, because 20 years is no small feat. A young Christopher McGhee started his career in 1998 at Luke Air Force Base, Arizona, in the 310th AMU, bad to the bone. As both an assistant dedicated crew chief and dedicated crew chief, he showed himself a highly motivated and diligent technician from the beginning. Chris was identified early on as a team player, committed to his coworkers and especially his subordinates. He then popped over to Osan Air Base for a year working in phase, once again lauded for his superior knowledge, commitment to supporting the mission, and pride in workmanship. No less important, he started dating Miranda in 2001, and they got married while he was back on leave. Then it was back to Luke and the 310th once again as a dedicated crew chief. He continued to get the same accolades of his skills, both as a leader and a technician. He so consistently received 100% on his QA inspections that I had to ask him, "Have you ever failed one?" Well, no one's perfect. He and Miranda also had their first daughter, Alex, during that time. Then Chris applied his skills and maintenance knowledge as an instructor. For those 2 years, he was considered the resident expert and the only engine run certifier and instructor crew chief in the group. Early during that time, they also had their second daughter, Alyssa, and Chris loved having a steady schedule to spend more time with his family. That's when, in 2010, Chris came to the 308th AMU, Strength and Honor, and began the time we worked together. This will be the crux of my talk about Chris because I could not have asked for a better teammate. I was the assistant OIC, and let's just say I was your stereotypical new lieutenant. I drove him nuts. One of my first memories was when he was filling in as an expediter on swing shift. Of course, I was on swing shift as the new lieutenant, and they were given an engine change just a few hours before the end of shift. I wanted to tag along and help. I think he just thought I was in the way. Yeah. Needless to say, I proceeded to impress him with my Coke bottle safety wiring, at least according to me. And so began our relationship of mentorship, him to me, of course. Chris taught me the maintenance basics, such as forms review and working impounds. I owe any and all skills I have to his ability to teach even the most uninformed of people. He was my go-to, both as a teacher and as a technician. We came to rely on him heavily in the 308th. The 308th was in a bad way for a long time. Anyone that was at Luke during that time can attest. We had some key personnel changes, and then through blood, sweat, and tears, we became the tightest, strongest team I've ever experienced, and we came fighting back. Chris was a huge part of that, and one of the hardest workers I know. But he gave me something else. He taught me how to be an officer, to earn respect, and most importantly, to take care of my guys. I learned from Chris what it meant to work hard for your subordinates and put them above all else. They knew that we had their back. We learned how to love work together, even through the struggles. I remember we had this running joke that I really wanted to earn the title of maintainer, which everyone knows usually maintenance officers aren't considered true maintainers. So Chris gave me a list of requirements that I had to meet to earn that title. A couple of which I had to have the right line badge holder. Obviously, couldn't have the lame one. And I had to work excessive hours, like at least 16 or more. I wanted nothing more than to earn his approval. I eventually got the right line badge holder, and definitely worked my fair share of hours. I became the officer I am today because of Chris, so thank you for that. Finally, Chris ended his time here at Holloman, still working those same F-16s. Anyone can attest that he always puts what's right first and foremost, setting aside his own desires for those he leads. Although a bit outspoken at times, I appreciate that his heart is always in the right place. The Air Force is losing a dedicated servant leader. You'll be sorely missed. I know you'll go off and do great things, and I'm glad you're getting your family time back, as I'm sure they are. I hope that your love and determination in life continue to bleed through everything you do, and that everyone gets to know the force to be reckoned with that is MSgt Chris McGhee. Thank you very much.
Our country appreciates your dedication and years of faithful service. Please accept my best wishes for good health and happiness as you embark on a new phase of your life. Your many associates and close friends from our Air Force Base will miss you. Signed, Colonel James R. King, Commander, 54th Fighter Group. At this time, Miranda will pin Master Sergeant McGhee's retirement pin on, as is military tradition. This lapel pin is worn on the left lapel of civilian attire as recognition of a retired Air Force member. Captain Gramco will now present a certificate of appreciation to Mrs. McGhee, which reads, "In grateful appreciation, the United States Air Force presents this certificate of recognition to Miranda E. McGhee for the commitment and numerous contributions that made positive impact to the nation's defense. Thank you for the support which gave strength and purpose to your spouse's service." Signed, Colonel James R. King, the Commander, the 54th Fighter Group, and General David Goldfein, Chief of Staff, United States Air Force. Captain Gramco will now present a certificate of appreciation from the Chief Master Sergeant of the Air Force, which reads, "On behalf of all Air Force airmen and their families, the Chief Master Sergeant of the Air Force presents this certificate of appreciation to Miranda E. McGhee. I join your spouse, family, and friends in thanking you for the numerous contributions and sacrifices you made in support of our United States Air Force. Your dedication gave strength and purpose to your spouse's service in defense of our nation." Signed, Chief Master Sergeant of the Air Force, Caleb O. Wright. Captain Gramco will now present a letter of appreciation to Mrs. McGhee from the 54th Fighter Group Commander, which reads, "Dear Mrs. McGhee, on the occasion of your husband's retirement from Air Force service, I extend to you my sincerest thanks and appreciation for the many sacrifices you made in supporting him throughout his career. Your support was critical to his success. In a stellar career that spans 20 years, it is clear that you were a driving force behind your husband's achievements. Time and again, your steadfast support allowed Master Sergeant McGhee to leave the comforts of his home and family to answer our nation's call. His tireless service has been paramount to the safety and security of our great country. The dedication Sergeant McGhee has displayed over the years is not only a reflection of your commitment to him, but of your commitment to the entire Air Force community. Natalie and I would like to take this opportunity to personally thank you on behalf of the men and women of the 54th Fighter Group and on behalf of a grateful nation. I extend my very best wishes to you and your family for happiness and success in the future. Sincerely, Colonel James R. King, the Commander of the 54th Fighter Group." At this time, Sergeant McGhee would like to present Miranda with a token of his appreciation. Alex and Alyssa, would you please come up front with your dad? Captain Gramco will now present Alex and Alyssa with the Military Children's Medal and certificates. So the certificates read, "Throughout the years of your life, you have made sacrifices and you have served your country as I have done. In your loving way, you quietly shouldered the heavy burden that you were asked to carry. Most of the time, you couldn't understand why it was not there, but you quietly hid the tears, courageously put on a smile, and defiantly promised that you would support me. You were then, as now, one of the most important parts of my life, and it was your love that enabled you to assure me that what I was doing was important. I missed so many holidays and countless special occasions while you were left at home while I was on a difficult mission. You had to say goodbye to your friends when we moved through the years, and you had to change schools. Your resilience and self-confidence throughout those moves gave me strength. I am proud of you for it. For it was your love and support that sustained me in those difficult times. There's no way in my mind that I could have been a success in the military without having your support. Your understanding and, more importantly, your unquestionable love. Thank you for being there for me. At this time, the 54th Fighter Group Quality Assurance would like to present Sergeant McGhee with a token of their appreciation. So, I still don't really know what I'm going to say, so I'm just going to kind of wing this. But I'm sure we can all agree that probably one of the best and worst qualities about Sergeant McGhee is that he's never wrong. Yeah. But at QA, even though he didn't have a stamp, I just want to let you guys know that he was the reason for a lot of the fails that you guys got. No, actually he's very rational, and he kind of talked us off the edge.
Yeah.
So we did give him a little bit of a nickname at QA, and I'm going to read what we have here. Master Sergeant Christopher, your middle initial M?
Yeah.
How about this? M. McGhee, November 16 to December 17, the Product Improvement Manager. On behalf of the 54th Fighter Group, we would like to thank you for all of the hard work. Your knowledge and insight will be greatly missed. QA will have to have a difficult time finding a new oracle.
Thanks, Rico.
Oh, can we get to take a picture?
Let's stay all right. I assured quality on that picture.
You did.
Yeah.
All right. At this time, Captain Griffin will present Master Sergeant McGhee with his shadow box.
All right, Chris.
Beautiful. Thank you.
All right. That's great. There's no plaque or anything.
Nope. I was hoping you would have some words.
I have one. So when I came to 311th AMU, your reputation preceded you. I heard about Chris McGhee. All good things, all good things. When I finally got to meet him, I learned a lot about leadership. It taught me how to care for people. There's times, even when I wasn't with Chris, that I didn't work with him anymore, I reached out to him via email and said, hey, remember that one time you said this in the meeting? Hey, can you send that to me in email? This guy's, you write a leadership book, along with a diet book.
It's going to be the speech.
Okay, gotcha. Gotcha. I learned a lot about leadership, a lot about dieting. A lot of different things.
I'm the oracle.
So you'll be greatly missed. I know all the officers. All the officers appreciate your leadership and your mentorship. So thank you very much. Get a picture of him.
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks for checking.
Ladies and gentlemen, I present Master Sergeant Retired Christopher M. McGhee. It is there.
I'm going to move this back. I don't want to shout at the front row. Okay, sir, first of all, I can't thank everybody for coming out. It's exceptionally humbling to see Henry flying from Hill. Like, I didn't think anybody would ever drive more than like 100 miles to see me. Chief Rushton and Joe. You know, Brian, I know you have a wedding to be at tomorrow. Like, that's a huge deal to me. But I remember, and I'm already off script, so sorry. I remember when I was an instructor, every Friday there was some loser retiring and he didn't have anybody, and they would make us go out to the hangar as a rent-a-crowd. And one of my greatest fears was, at my retirement, I would look around the room and I would see people I didn't know. And there's not a single person in this room that I don't know. Which means I've probably already given you my speech. So first of all, for those that aren't in the know, if you look, I don't have an achievement medal. So I made staff sergeant right off the bat, first time. I mean, it was so fast that I didn't get an achievement medal. And I've always wanted an achievement medal because I have this pathetic Luke ribbon rack. So I reached out to the group and I said, hey, I'm retiring. Instead of just getting an MSM device, I'd really like to get an achievement medal. I never got one. And they eventually gave me one. So big thank you to them. So don't think it was like something like I operated as an airman for the last 3 years. That's not the case. Well, maybe. So that's that. Also, a huge thank to the group. And Eric Stromsky can help me out on this one. So 4.5 years ago, I was walking back from retirement, and I asked Captain Gramco to be my retirement official, and I made the promise then, hey, I'll pay half your airfare. And I said it only one single time, but I have a very good memory. And then she went to Chile, and then she went to Korea, and at the time I was at Luke, and then I moved here, where I've lived in an apartment, and I've had my house and family back in Phoenix, so it's split income, very expensive. So then my retirement was coming up, and I was like, oh, she's in Germany. That's like, I don't. So then I was like, oh, what could it be, like $1,200 or something? So like, she's like, okay, so what are the dates I'm gonna get the ticket? She's hit me up on Facebook, and I priced out the ticket like bare bones budget, whatever. It was like $3,500 for tickets, and I was like, I don't have $1,700 to just crap out. So I didn't bring it up, right? I felt, and then for like 3 weeks, I was just wallowing in guilt that I had made this promise. And I talked to Miranda, I was like, I did this, I don't know how to get out of it. So then I talked to Eric, and Eric's like, don't be a piece of crap. Which is true. So then I immediately hit her up, I said, how much is your ticket? I will pay half. And she's like, oh, there's no need for that. I'm like, okay, but I'm offering to pay out. Oh, there's no need. I was like, oh, thank God. And then she's like, hey, there's a reg that says if you're the official, the Air Force can maybe pay for it. And I reached out to the group, and they paid for her to come here, and that was mind-blowing. I couldn't believe it. I am so grateful for it. So I wanted to make sure I specifically talked about that, how great it was. So there's kind of an old saying that goes around that you don't join the Air Force to get rich, right? Like, we've all heard that. Nobody joins the Air Force to get rich. I grew up on welfare, food stamps, and Section 8. So I joined the Air Force to make money. I make more money now than I ever thought I would make in my entire life. I completed more than one college class. That's more than I ever thought I'd ever do in my entire life. Miranda grew up. She didn't have a lot of money. By all accounts and purposes, we are doing way better than both of us ever thought we would do in our life. And I attribute a lot of that to the Air Force. So for me, it's kind of bittersweet that I know what the Air Force gave me that I'm walking away from, that I never thought I could ever have in my entire life. So it's time for me to go home. Most of you in the room know that I've been away from my family for 3.5 years now, doing the commute whenever I can, long weekends, leaves, or what have you. Get to be back at home with the family. And I'm really looking forward to it. You know, I see how much my girls have grown up. Alyssa, my little one, she's as old as Alex was when I left to come here. And I thought Alex was just, you know, this old, wise soul child at 9, and now Alyssa's turning into an old, wise soul child at 9. You know, it's amazing how quickly that time slips away and how much you miss. So the good news is you're not going to have to miss me anymore. Because this is pretty much it. Brian Cottle was my first supervisor. me and another airman showed up to the 310th in 1998, and I had freshly polished boots and a sharp uniform, and he did not, and they needed an assistant for the flagship, and they looked at me and they looked at him, and they said, "You're on the flagship now," and I was like, I don't know what that means. I don't know what flagship means. Brian Cottle was the DCC on it. He was an engine troop cut trained to being a crew chief, and he was a DCC on it with Mark Turk. And I thought, cool, I'm on the flagship. That's neat. Little did I know, as the new A1C, my job on the flagship was to clean and learn, right? Clean and learn. And there's nothing wrong with that. And Brian was a real asshole. Right? And I love him. But I would not have learned, I would not have, it's so difficult in flightline. And people who have been on the flightline a while, they'll probably nod your heads when I say this. The best thing you can do, for anybody that's younger in here, which I don't think there's that many in here, best thing you can do in maintenance is surrender to the suck. Because as soon as you accept that it's just not going to be great, it becomes so much easier. And Brian kind of helped me through that. He put me through the suck long enough for me to go, okay, this is how it is. And then it was much, much better. And he wasn't my friend. He wasn't supposed to be my friend. He was my DCC, and my job was to get dirt off his aircraft, and that's what he did. But he also took me aside and taught me maintenance. He made me not ashamed of the things I didn't know. If it was servicing hydraulics or servicing a tire, he didn't care how simple it was. He helped me. He never made me feel bad about asking for help. I knew I could always come to him. I knew when I came to him, he would give me the help, and he'd tell me something to clean. And that was kind of the price I paid, and I was okay with that. But we also had the best-looking jet on the line, and that was the price we paid for the flagship. Because Joe was already in the truck, and 360 had gone to crap by then, so that's not Joe's fault. So, that's a good segue. Joe Kane, I was a young A1C and I walked out to the flight line, and it's a radical world walking on the flight line the first time, especially Luke in the summer, and you don't know what to expect. And I was fresh out of tech school where it's a tech sergeant, and it's absolutely call him Technical Sergeant Kane or Sergeant Kane. And I think I came up with pressed uniform and shine boots, and I said, "Hey, Sergeant Kane, I'm here to work," and you call me Joe. And that was the tone that he had set. It was call him Joe. And that for me was mind-blowing, and it really helped me understand that the flight line is about relationships, not about just arbitrary rank and stuff like that. And when he was mad or when something was off, it was Sergeant Kane. And we all knew to kind of do that. But I also knew there was many times where I would go up to him and, "Joe, I have an emergency. I need your help." And he's like, "No problem, brother." And he'd get me out, take care of me. Because he knew I would work twice as hard for him the rest of the time because he took care of me. So for me, going up to an older tech sergeant as a brand new kid, and he said, "Just call me Joe," that for me really made work a family sort of affair. And then Chief Rushton, I actually defected to be his ADCC. I don't know if he remembers this, but I was on 458, and the DCC was John Day. And Chief Rushton, Staff Sergeant Rushton at the time, was on day shift, and his assistant had just gone to phase, or he'd gone somewhere. He lost his assistant, and I saw him over there cleaning the jet all by himself, and I felt so terrible that this poor staff sergeant was cleaning a jet without any help. I left my jet, and I went over to help clean him and talk to him and stuff, right? And I did this for days. And then he's like, "Hey man, if you just want to clean out my jet, do you just want to be my assistant?" I was like, "Yeah, I absolutely want to be your assistant. That would be great." He's like, "Okay, we'll talk to John Day, make sure that's all squared away." And I didn't want to. So I just didn't. So I just started crewing his jet, right? And then like 2 weeks later, 458 looked like, it looked terrible. It looked like it had flown through a chimney, right? And then John caught me wiping on Tom's jet, and he said, "Hey, what are you doing wiping on 412? I'm like, "Oh, Tom doesn't have anybody to wipe on his jet." He's like, "I don't have anyone to wipe on my jet." So eventually it kind of like, through passive aggressive something or other, I just became the assistant on 412. Chief Rushton, he was a scary staff sergeant. He had that angry sort of way about him, but you knew as soon as he realized that you weren't a piece of crap, you were part of his family too. And I wanted to go to swing shift, and I wanted to work with him, and I wanted to learn from him, and he was never shy about getting out there and doing work and getting dirty and teaching. And I remember one night, this was in 2001, I had just made staff sergeant. I had a line number for staff sergeant. Back then, if you were a senior with a line number for staff sergeant, you got red X's. And they put me on mid shift because that's the most low threat shift for a crew chief to be on, with red X's. And I had a motor to install. And as I've been in the Air Force like 3 years, And at the time when they gave me red X's, I'm like, cool, panels and tires. I'm way better than all the other senior airmen. And then it was like, hey, swing shift's almost done. They're at their 12. You're going to take over this motor install. And mid-shift is not the heavy hitters for crew chiefs. And I was scared out of my mind to try to stuff a motor with my experience level with the crew that I had. And they took me in the pro super's office, and Chief Russian was sitting there, and they're like, you got it? And I gave the least confident I got it probably ever. And he looked at me, he's like, you got it? I'm like, yeah, I got it. And he's like, okay. And then I went out, and it was like, open the TO, let's start step one. Next thing I knew, Chief Russian had come out. And he stayed till his 15-hour mark and made sure we got that motor stuffed. Like, it was that dedication to duty that I modeled myself after. I was exceptionally lucky with the people that I had in the 310th as a young airman, between Brian, Joe, Tom, Chris Rodriguez, Donnie, Marty Felicki. We had, I'm not sure if we just had better people then, I don't want to think that, but we had some great people to grow airmen then. And that's how I got started on the right track. So Ricky Radford was the best section chief I ever had in my entire life. Anybody that's worked for me when I've been a section chief, you can thank Ricky Radford if I helped take care of you or if I did anything for you, because he was who I modeled myself after. He would see my coveralls were not looking good, and he would stay late till 7:30 at night to make sure that I got a fresh pair of coveralls. He would ask me what I need. I asked him to move shifts. He let me move shifts. I never had any doubt that he was in my corner to take care of me. And that meant if I screwed up, he was also sitting me down and going, hey man, what's going on, right? And if I had troubles or I had problems, he made my problems his problems. And that's a big part of leading people, is you make their problems your problems. Their problems aren't an inconvenience to you. So thank you, Ricky. Ernie, boy, I've known you since I was a A1C. You may not realize it, but I was an A1C. I put senior airman on right when I started kind of hanging out with your family. I met his daughter. I met Miranda through his daughter. He kind of gave me the surrogate family. Lois was the mother that I needed for many, many, many years. The family in Phoenix, I can't imagine being stationed at Luke for as long as I was and not having such an amazing support structure for all the holidays and favors and advice and guidance, especially with Ernie being a prior F-16 crew chief, where I could talk maintenance, or I could say, hey, this effed up stuff is going on at work. I think they're committing crimes. What do you think? He's like, yep, that sounds like they're breaking the law. You should probably talk to somebody. Okay, thanks. That was big. Eric, we were talking about this just the other day. We were stationed at Luke for like 15 years or something together, all the way airmen growing up. Never once somehow our spheres sort of intertwined. We met each other for the first time here at Holloman. Besides the brief interaction we had at NCO Academy when I was a criminal then too. But it's really amazing we were stationed at the same base so long, and we came here as crusty master sergeants. But we really carved out our place here and made names for ourselves as people that did things right and had good work ethic. And I'm really glad we got to work together. Which segues into the Browns. So between the Stromskys and the Browns, you really made being here at Holloman not even tolerable, it was good, you know. Like individually, Jim is like the ultimate guy just to talk to and relax with and ask questions of, and he has such a great demeanor, and he lets things roll off of him that would have made me just rip my hair out and punch walls and stuff, and it's relaxing, right? Because he's not getting keyed up with you. Eric, you've been my conscience, or you know, that's why I offered to pay, because Eric. And Nina, you have been the most forthright friend that I've had in a long time. You said, you can't just eat right, you need to go to the gym or else you're going to stay fat. Yep. Thanks. That helped, right? That's an important thing that friends should do. So thank you for that. But all the times you invited me over to your house to make me feel included because you knew that I didn't have a family here, you created my Holloman family. I appreciate it. So thank you. Man, I'm doing good. All right. And so a lot of these jokes are going to kind of not work for you. But so it's now time for the airing of the grievances. So I got a lot of problems. Now you're going to hear about it. So I was actually given the choice in 2014. My doctor said, he said, either you can go to AFPC to get out of your orders, or I can give you a medical deferment, you'll be MSgt and probably kicked out of the Air Force, so you can just go to Holloman. So I chose to come to Holloman. I could have not come to Holloman at the risk of maybe my career. And I wouldn't have changed anything for the world, because what I've learned here at Holloman has been tremendous. So the first thing I'm going to talk about is how I failed. I'm not going to talk about all the great things I did. I'm going to talk about what I did wrong, what I might have learned from, and what I still haven't learned from. Because the point of this is not for me just to be a salty old man and airing of the grievances, truly. It's here's what I think is wrong, and here's what we need to do better. And here's what I did wrong too. So how I failed, and I already talked to Henry about this. So in 2004, 2005-ish, Henry got a DUI, and I was his supervisor. And he came up to me, his EPR was midway being written, and I think our section chief was a real piece of crap. Burroff, I think? Yeah. I said I wasn't going to name names, but he's probably dead anyway. All right. He should be. And his EPR was being written, and he got a referral 3? Yeah, he got a referral 3. And I was a brand new staff sergeant, and I did not know what I could do to help people. I didn't know how a non-concur worked. I didn't know how to fight. I didn't know any of those things. And he got my flight chief coach, he's like, hey, Henry got a DUI, he's going to get a referral 3. And I said, is that what we do? Yep, okay. And Henry came up to me when his EPR closed out, and he had this huge smile on his face. And if you know Henry, he has that huge, right? And and he said, hey, we were in support. I remember, hey, Sergeant McGhee, thank you so much. I know that you had a lot of work into my EPR, that you saved me from a worse rating. I appreciate everything you did for me. And I said, oh, Henry, no problem, man. You know, that's what I'm here for, to make sure I'm taking care of you. And I didn't help him. And I felt like crap for a really, really long time. A lot of guilt with that. So that was a failure. That was a failure on my part. That it was a failure of my ignorance, that I did not know how to take care of my person. And from then on, I wanted to learn how to take care of my person. And you probably saw it with Chavez. It played out with Chavez too. I ended up taking care of him and fighting pretty hard for him. So that was a failure that I had, where I accepted accolades and I didn't fight for a person that deserved to be fought for. I mean, Henry was a great airman. He had a great attitude, great work ethic. Hence the reason why he's here today. You know, I didn't fight for him, and I should have. And I learned to fight for people after that mistake and that shame. And all the times I was a pain in the ass thereafter was because of that lesson that I learned. Tyler Mendes is like the grandchild of that experience, right? If I hadn't done that, I don't know where you would be right now, you know? So, and then my time in production. So when I was working in the 310s, when it was really, really, really bad, when Jose Munoz was, me and him were expediters together, and we worked 15 hours a day minimum, there was not enough resources to do what we needed to do. And I would drive home and think about all my failures and all the things I didn't accomplish, and the reconfig that didn't get done, and the intubate that didn't get done. And all I could focus on is what I didn't do right. And I would have to remind myself that when I'm 70 years old, I'm not going to remember the failures of today. I'm just going to remember that I served with a lot of great people, and I worked on F-16s, and I did right. And that's what the people in this room kind of represent to me. But production made me so angry, so frustrated. And a lot of that frustration came from we weren't properly resourced in parts, we weren't properly resourced in iron, we weren't properly resourced in manning levels, we were not properly resourced in experience, and they wanted expediters and pro supers through magic to make the jets work. And I was just so frustrated and angry. And I would take that out on people. When I quit being a pro super, I moved into the specialist section. There was a lot of people in that spec section that were afraid of me, that were unwilling to come up to me if they needed advice. Basically, I was the anti-Ricky Radford, because no one felt they could trust me because of how horrendous I was as a pro super. That, well, probably a personality problem on my fault, but really, you almost have to be that way to function as a pro super. You have to look at your people as a resource. And I hated that about myself. And that's why I quit. Because I wanted to go home and like who I was at the end of the night. And in production, I hated myself. So I was very unapproachable. So there's a lie we tell ourselves that I've heard, been told to me, to try to encourage me to make rank. You need to make rank so that way you can take care of your people. Like if you make the next stripe, you can take care of your people. What I found is, if you're willing to, you can take care of your people at any rank at all whatsoever. There was times I was an A1C where I was fighting against people. There was times as a staff sergeant I was standing up more so than other people once I learned those lessons. As a master sergeant, I was a giant pain in the ass, right? Yeah. So it had nothing to do with my authority. It had everything to do with my willingness to fight. And I got my willingness to fight the day I said, I don't care about making rank anymore. I don't care. And not, well, I don't want to burn any bridges just in case. It was, nope, I'm done here. I'm satisfied here. I'm going to take care of my people. Taking care of your people doesn't always mean when they get a DUI, you're taking them out of wreckage and hiding it. Sometimes taking care of your people means kicking them out of the Air Force. Sometimes taking care of your people means giving them an LOR or going to inspect their dorm room because they're not doing what they're supposed to do. Sometimes taking care of your people means putting it absolutely all on the line for the right person to take care of them, to save that career. And you have to be willing to sacrifice your career in order to save their career. If it's the right thing to do, you just hope that you do it for the right person. So we do this deception in aircraft maintenance. It's kind of like a wink and a nod sort of maintenance. Where I was an expediter, someone get done with their BPO pre-flight after 15 minutes, and they're pushing their box in. As an expediter, I'm not responsible for the quality of that pre-flight, but I certainly need a body so that I can get my jets worked. So even though he's pushing his box in, I know his pre-flight probably wasn't very good, I accept that. That's the wrong thing to do, right? It's duplicitous, it's deceptive, and what you do is you create an environment where lack of compliance is acceptable until that person gets caught not complying, and then it's an individual responsibility and nobody looks at all the people that pushed that person or created the environment that made that acceptable. Like, it's almost impossible to get the mission done and be 100% TO compliant. Who remembers my time at EOR? Show of hands. That's what 100% TO compliance looks like. Sometimes it's not feasible. So you need to talk to your people and find that gray area. You have to operate in that gray area. You can't be pure black and white. But if somebody does something to get the mission done that they do every single day, that people know they do every single day, and then one day they get caught, you don't hammer them. You recognize that's the cost of business that we have right now to get the mission done, because we don't have the resources we need to do it. Because as soon as you hammer that person for operating in the environment he grew up in, and you say it's an individual responsibility, he's ruined. We talk about retention, we talk about recruiters and how many people they need to add to the Air Force. You know who the best recruiter for the Air Force is? We are. When you leave the Air Force, you talk about how you were treated to people. You tell them about the Air Force. I've actually said, I coined the phrase, I'm a decruiter now. When I was buying my car, the kid's like, how do you like the Air Force? I don't. You should not join. Because that's the environment I've been in recently. And that's not how it should be. Okay? So that brings me to something that was a little bit of a thorn in my side, Course 15. I'm not going to talk about Course 15 and how the Air Force made a mistake. I'm going to talk about mistakes that were made locally. Course 15 was stupid, evidenced by the fact that it was removed. There's a certain amount of dishonesty when senior leaders push Course 14 on a force that's ready to be broken. We're talking about Course 15 that was the backbone of our maintenance, our staff sergeants and our tech sergeants, and I think our really, really old senior airmen. That is the core of what we use to get the mission done. And we shoved Course 15 on them because that's what the Air Force wanted. That's not the bad part. The bad part is when the force distribution boards came up, and even though we know Course 15 added no value to our people, we use it as a discriminator to promote people. And then the worst part is when they took Course 15 away, those same people that used Course 15 as a discriminator to promote people said, boy, it's really good they got rid of Course 15. That's wrong. and your people will notice. Like the generation of airmen now compared to when I was an airman, we didn't have social media, we didn't have all the blogs, we didn't have all that information. People have information now, they can sniff through the BS. They won't just take what we say at face value. Like that hurt us. That let our people know that their leaders are not willing to take care of them. So we're resource poor. We've all kind of figured that out, those that are still in. And I grew up poor. I know what being poor is like. I can kind of operate when I'm poor. The first thing you do when you're poor is you stop going out to eat. And you stop buying toys. And you stop doing those things. So to translate that to the Air Force, we need to just do the core mission. We need to get rid of the frivolous cross countries or the pictures or the other things. Those hurt us. That's when you start spreading super thin, trying to get everything done, all your wants, then now you start dropping the ball on your needs, and you're not getting the core mission done anymore. So I implore you, for those that are remaining in the Air Force, when you see things you know are not value added to the mission, please, please turn it off. Your people will appreciate it. It'll give you a chance to work DDs, it'll give you a chance to do lots of other things, or give your people time off. Because what being resource poor does, what I've noticed in my limited sphere, is when you become resource poor, that's when micromanagement amps up. Because when you're so poor, you're counting the pennies at the end of the day, it creates stress. So when you get so poor that you can barely get the mission done, that's when micromanagement starts creeping in, and everybody's getting to every facet of everything that's going on, and from what I've seen, micromanagement makes everything worse. So being resource poor is the situation we're in, but also I ask that you please, please push back against micromanagement where you can. For those that served with me in the 314th, I can say beyond a shadow of a doubt, I pushed back against micromanagement as much as I could until I couldn't take it anymore and I had to quit just because it was such a, hostile's not even the word, just a grind, an emotional grind. So we're kind of taught failure is not an option. That's not true. Like, yeah, our mission will probably never fail. But what happens is our people will work 15 hours a day. They'll fail PT tests. They'll get a divorce. They'll grind themselves into nothingness. Because the reality is the flight line is always hungry. The flight line will take whatever you will give it. If you work 17 hours a day, 7 days a week, the flight line will say thanks, and if you want to work 18, it'll take it. And it'll destroy your family if it can. Okay? So the failure happens, but it happens to the individual. It just gets deferred to the family and their health. And then typically that's when they're ready to walk away from the Air Force because they kind of feel used up. So there's been many times here in my capacity as section chief, as pro super, and as lead pro super, where I have been asked to lie. Like, the cannon plug was disconnected. Well, let's say it was unseated or loose. No, I'm not going to do that. But it disturbed me every time I was asked to lie. And where we would get the story straight. Well, I'm going to brief this at this meeting, so you need to brief this at this meeting. Okay, I'm going to brief the truth. Either get in line or get out. But that's a problem. And it's that value and congruence where we're taught integrity first, but in practice we just don't see it. So part of the purpose of me today is I hope that I showed integrity in everything I always did, and I hope that you kind of take that and run with it. And interestingly enough, a lot of the times people lie is because they lie because it's what's best for their career. Where you fudge the numbers a little bit, or you make your MSgt rate a little bit better, you go MyCap on something you shouldn't have gone MyCap on, but you get a little bit faster. There is a fundamental problem if you're in an organization where you have to choose between between doing right and doing right by your career. And I think that's where we have reached. And it's very, very upsetting to me. Because those should always be the same. I'm doing right, good for you. That was the right call. Sometimes when you're trying to do right, people see it as you're getting in the way. of them doing right by their career. And that is really probably one of the #1 reasons why I retired at 20 years and 13 days. I'm almost done. The new EPR system, please just be honest. That's all I ask. And I tried so hard for that. My EPR 2 years ago, I at least have one witness, I was marked too high, I asked to be corrected. I said, I can cite specific things where my attitude has been poor. I should not be marked all the way to the right here. They're like, well, we're trying to push you for promotion. Oh, just please don't. That's it on that. If I'm a mediocre leader, at least I'm honest about it. If I tell my people I love them and I'm a mediocre leader, that's deceptive. Your people are going to know you love them by how you treat them. Your actions are going to speak much louder than words. So I noticed with General Welsh, he started doing that recently, saying it, well, before he was no longer Chief of Staff of the Air Force, he started saying, you know, I would die for you, or who are you, I would die for you. I don't need you to die for me, I just need you to make things better. But I don't think he would die for us. And there's other people that say very similar things, and it feels manipulative, is what it feels like. If you love me, show it. It's not hard. It's not hard for a maintainer to figure it out, right? Barbecues are great, but recognizing your people being ground into a fine paste and reducing your flying, that shows me you love me. That's what that shows me. And not trying to extract every ounce of production out of the human capital that you have. Treat your people like people. Then they know you love them. And be willing to sacrifice your career for them, right? Think about all the leaders you've had. How many do you think would sacrifice lay themselves on the altar to do what's right by you? And if the answer is 1 or 2 or 3, that's not healthy. So recently the SecDef, on the 4th of August, he released a memo. I hope you guys read it. It said, I expect every member of the department to play the ethical midfield. I need you to be aggressive and show initiative without running the ethical sidelines, where even one misstep will have you out of bounds. I want our focus to be on the essence of ethical conduct, doing what is right at all times, regardless of the circumstances of whether anyone is watching. The fact that he wrote it means he thinks we're not doing it. It should be an insult. I took it as a personal insult. Chief Cody said, that people that are burning out, it needs to be elevated by the person to the right level of leadership within the organization. I promise you, at some given point in that chain of command, someone is going to say, knock it off, that's not healthy, that's not sustainable, and we're not going to do it. Chief Cody said that him and General Welsh had their back if they needed it. Don't do that. There is no airman in the world that has a situational awareness to know that where they're operating is not a healthy environment. It is our job as leaders to recognize when it's unhealthy for our people and take action to make their world better. If an airman is elevating how terrible his work conditions are to you, it's a failure. So, I don't think I would be who I am today if I didn't come to Holloman. As much as I've grown, as much as I've learned. I had five jobs. My wife was nice enough to buy me this stapler. I don't know if you guys recognize what that stapler is, but that's from Office Space. Pretty much when they moved me to ER, I felt like I was being moved into the basement, and they fixed the glitch. But every job kind of gave me that opportunity to control my space, to do what I could do for my people. Even when I was down in the EOR truck, Moran, how many times did we have conversations? What's the difference between a lawful order and an unlawful order? Our job is to put safe jets in the air. That's all we said. Our job is to not lie in front of an accident investigation board. That's our job. We'll just follow the book and be honest. So wherever I went here at Holloman, I kind of made the best of where I was. I really loved being a spec section chief. That's where I wanted to be at until this day came. It's a shame that I couldn't stay there, but I'm glad for my career. What I'm most thankful for is the fact that I relented on any promotion consideration, because for me that was absolutely liberating. When I stopped caring about impressing people, I had the freedom to do what I needed to do ethically and morally, and I never had those weird internal conflicts that we have when we try to get promoted but also try to do right, where you're torn. What do I do? I never had those anymore. It made it way easier. So I recommend that. Unfortunately, you'll never get promoted in this Air Force again if you do that, so that sucks. But it feels good, so I recommend it. That's all I have. Thank you. The grievances are over.
I have some grievances of my own. No. All right, so this concludes the formal part of our ceremony. On behalf of Sergeant McGhee and his family, thank you all for attending today's ceremony. Please come forward and extend your congratulations and wish Chris. Can I call you Chris already? Okay, Sergeant McGhee, Master Sergeant McGhee, a happy retirement. That's it.